You know what time it is. It is Thursday. It is 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock Eastern, which means that it can mean one thing and one thing only. It is time for the Losing Sucks Fantasy Football Podcast, and I am your host, Dustin Blanton. My co-host, Travis, is still away on a vacation. Travis, I hope you're doing well. He's probably going to tune into the show and listen. I want to thank you all for tuning in and listening as well. Today, though, we're kind of changing it up, okay? We're not just going to strictly talk the NFL. I have with me today, I have a guest that knows his stuff about the NFL and the college ranks as well. And you know, if you've listened to the show before, how much I love talking Devy and the college football game as well. I am joined today by Felix Sharpe from Campus to Canton. He is none other than the Secretary of Propaganda for Campus to Canton, and you can catch him on the Better Network now on Saturdays at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. Felix, thank you so much for joining me. How are you, sir?
I appreciate you having me on. I like just talking football. Today is Thursday. It is the real start of the college football season, week 1. We've got games going on right now as we're recording. You're putting me to shame with your professional setup and microphone. I admire it. One day when I grow up, I want to be like you.
I appreciate that, man. I appreciate that. It's not like you look bad. You still look great. Like, get out of here. But I appreciate the compliment, man. Just to give some backstory to everybody, I was just telling Felix off air before we started the show that Felix was actually the first person that I reached out to when I was even thinking about getting into content creation and in the whole fantasy football space. And he was gracious enough to share with me some stuff that he was studying at the time, and a couple of quick conversations. And here we are.
And we should encourage other people. It's really like an outlet. Like, you have this in you where you want to talk about something, and you might do it at the office with your friends, but you want to get it out there. And I think what I told you is just set up a microphone and start talking and feel how therapeutic it is to get that out, to actually to talk about this thing that you want to talk about, but then to create. We are made to create. And so, if anybody wants to start a podcast out there, you can reach out to me, man. But it doesn't take that much. Yeah. Just get a microphone and start talking.
Get him, man. I swear. You mentioned the camera and the microphone. It did not start out like this. Go back and listen to our first shows. It is far from this. But no, man, it's awesome. Yeah, like you said, people can reach out to anyone, especially when you got friendly guys like you in the industry who are just willing to chat and give some advice. So if you're thinking about starting a podcast, or if you just want to talk football with your friends, grab a microphone and talk about it. But while we're doing that, talking football, Felix, I've got some questions for you, man. Like I brought up in the intro, I don't get the chance to talk college football much. My co-host Travis, he's a whiz at fantasy football. He loves the NFL. He's all about it. But you happen to be in a unique situation where you're part of Campus to Canton, who has a foot in each realm here. So I'm looking forward to kind of picking your brain. The first question I have to ask you, though, is: do you prefer college or do you prefer the NFL?
I do prefer college over the NFL, and one of the main reasons is because I feel like the unknown in college and predicting that unknown is so much fun, so exhilarating. In the NFL, I mean, your top 3-5 quarterbacks or so, that's going to be the same for the next 5 to 10 years. Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, they're good. Kyler Murray. I mean, they're going to be Lamar Jackson. They're going to be right there. But in college, like the characters in the story change every single season. And so we get to track these player journeys, and, we get to do our job as quote unquote analysts to predict, who are going to be these guys that become fantasy relevant either in college or the NFL. And so it feels good when you are looking at a freshman or, someone going into their freshman year and saying that's a person that has an NFL future, and then being right or being, drastically wrong on it. Either way
wrong
is a lot of fun. And, we've got the the XFL and all these spring football leagues that people are
Right.
trying to bring out. What we really need to do is like just turn our attention towards college football. If you want to, expand your fantasy game, then you should try Campus to Canton. You should try Campus to Canton. I guarantee you, in those January, February months when you're doing freshman drafts, you won't be bored and you still get the NFL dynasty aspect of the game.
That's right. That's right. Man, I'm glad you brought that up because fantasy was kind of how I learned about I'm a Bears fan, so I started off with just being a Bears fan. Then as I started to play fantasy, that's how I grew my knowledge of, every other team and all the other players. And I think that's a common theme once people start playing fantasy. I consider myself an average college fan. So just looking at the concept of Campus to Canton, it's fairly new, and at least to me. And I think that's why I'm so interested. I'm so glad that you agreed to come on the show because we don't have a lot of people who, at least that I talk to, who are doing both. And I'm really excited for people to give that a shot and to have them develop that much of a growing interest in that sport. They are the same sport, but it kind of feels different,
Oh yeah, from regionality to offensive schemes to like just the size of players in different conferences, it is different. But the thing that's fun about Campus to Canton that it will help you become a better NFL fantasy player because you will know these names. People in Campus to Canton leagues knew who Scott Moore was 2 years ago. We knew who Zach Wilson was. Some of these G5 guys that are coming in. Wandale Robinson. We tracked his recruiting from being a top-ranked dual-threat running back to being used into kind of a running back wide receiver role at Nebraska. And then when he was transferred to UK and was used primarily as like a slot wide receiver. So you're not in. It sounds like it's a lot to digest, but you're just bad at first, and then you get better. I was bad at first I'm still bad. I'm still bad, but you get to practice this craft of scouting and evaluating talent, and it's just so much more fun because you have action when you're playing NFL fantasy. Mm-hmm. You got action on Monday night, primarily Sunday. Right. And when you're playing Campus to Canton, you have action on sometimes Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then obviously the NFL on Sunday. So it's it's my favorite format, and that's why we started the website because we thought that there was the potential for growth here.
Yeah, there's a ton of potential, especially when you get into the finer details of Campus to Canton. So Campus to Canton, if people aren't aware, the concept is that you have a college roster and an NFL roster. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, obviously. But when guys are on your college roster, once they, declare as eligible, you can choose can you choose to bring them over to your NFL roster?
Yeah. So the way it works is if you play Dynasty, just think of Dynasty that extends into the college ranks. So you have a college team and an NFL team. It's not like Debbie where you just place these players on the taxi squad. There are there's an NFL championship in the league, and you play NFL Dynasty Fantasy Football. And there's a college championship. So you can start Bijan Robinson and Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud and Jackson Smith and Jigba. Or, Jamar Chase when he was at LSU. You're starting them every week, and they're accumulating points. And when those players declare for the NFL draft, they're just added to your NFL team. And so you get to actually be first on a player. And that's why it's called Campus to Canton, because you have them for the balance of their college and NFL career. You can.
Okay. That's cool. I like that. I definitely plan on taking the dive. So I'm going to be hitting you up.
CampusToCanton.com is the website. Campus2Canton.com.
That's right. Now we can get into some specific players because we'll talk college. Obviously, you've got the guys at the top. You mentioned some games going on. I'm a big Notre Dame fan as well. We're taking on Ohio State, and I don't know what to expect from this game. I really don't. But there are a lot of stars on the offensive side of the ball who will probably be seeing some first round draft capital next year. Who are a few names that we can kind of introduce the the audience here to, who maybe they haven't heard of and could be seeing them in the 2023 draft class?
Well, I mean, for that Ohio State Notre Dame game, there's I don't know how many can I count? At least 3 first round
Yeah,
draft picks.
for sure.
I'm sorry, 3 first round draft picks in the 2023 class. There's
Right.
more first round draft picks in that game.
Always.
But Michael Mayer, a tight end from Covington Catholic, right here near Louisville in Kentucky. Big tight end, move shifty player, probably be a top 20 pick. CJ Stroud is a potential number 1 overall pick at quarterback. And then Jackson Smith-Njigba, the slot wide receiver there at Ohio State, very, very productive. He's probably going to be a top 30-ish. I don't think I'm as high as consensus is on Jackson Smith-Njigba because he is used primarily as a slot wide receiver there.
Right.
But I mean, there are 3. There are 3 in that game. And then if you want to throw in some like dark horses, particularly in that game, I'm a big fan of Chris Tyree. Chris Tyree, the running back for Notre Dame, ran a 4.23 40 coming out of high school.
Right.
That's absolutely ridiculous. He has a lot of athleticism, and Notre Dame, now they're healthy now, but Notre Dame's running back depth chart took some hits in the spring and in the fall, and so there were injuries there. It was looking like Chris Tyree was going to be the primary back. He probably still is, but they've gotten a little bit healthier. The other thing about Notre Dame's backfield is that first-time starter Tyler Buckner is should be one of the best dual threat quarterbacks in the country. Now, he hasn't started on a full-time basis since 2018 when he was in high school. But in that sophomore season, his sophomore season, he ran for 1,500 yards and showed elite athleticism. And so he's going to be the starter. I have questions about his arm talent overall. But when you have a dual threat quarterback like that, that player is going to open up. He occupies linebackers. And so that opens holes for your running back, Chris Tyree. If he is deployed as the primary back, he could have just as good a season as, I'm forgetting his name, who was drafted by the Rams last year. So in that game, in that game, yes, Kyron Williams. Kyron Williams. He could be as productive as Kyron Williams was last year. So in that game, those are probably the main players that I'm looking forward to. But I didn't even say Travion Henderson's name, who is comp to Reggie Bush, and Marvin Harrison Jr., who moves like his father, was on Bruce Feldman's freak list, I believe, at number 2. Bruce Feldman's top freak list that's released every year. He's number 2. Moves like his father, but in a 6'3", 6'4", 210-pound frame. So,
unbelievable.
It's going to be a really exciting game. There are a lot of 2023 draft picks in that class on the the skill position players. A lot of players that we are going to be taking in fantasy drafts at some point down the line.
Oh, for sure. I mean, speaking of guys, teams that produce talent at the NFL level, I feel like I would be remiss if I didn't mention Alabama. Lately in the last few years, they've produced some fantasy relevant running backs even. So, I mean, that's always kind of been their thing. I feel like, lately it's been wide receivers as well. One of the guys that I want to bring up, though, because, the first guy that you gave me advice on when we first talked was Jahmyr Gibbs. From his freshman year, you told me about this kid who reminded you of Aaron Jones. And you know what? He runs like Aaron Jones, and he plays a lot like him, has a lot of the same skills. And now he just happens to find himself as a transfer to Alabama this year. He could be a top 2 round pick. And can you tell me some more about him and maybe some other sleeper picks, in the college ranks that we could be seeing on Sundays as well?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I actually wouldn't even call Jahmyr Gibbs a sleeper. I think that he is going to Alabama. Yeah, I think he's going to Alabama in attempt to get first-round draft capital. And I think that between he and Bijan Robinson, that's very much in the cards. Bijan Robinson has, 220 pounds, has all the athleticism.
Right.
He kind of looks like Saquon Barkley. But the thing about Jahmyr Gibbs, he's probably the best pass catcher that we've seen since Christian McCaffrey. Very sticky hands, but also very precise in his route running out of the backfield. Now, we haven't seen him line up in the slot or outside a lot. He has done it some, but hasn't done anything, extensive out there like Aaron Jones. As a matter of fact, I think I have a tweet probably from Jahmyr Gibbs' freshman year, showing Jahmyr Gibbs run the same routes as Aaron Jones side by side.
That's what you sent me. Absolutely, the wheel routes.
Okay. Yes. So he is the most dynamic player out of the backfield, in my opinion, that we've seen since probably Christian McCaffrey. But he pairs that with this slashing, bursty running style like Aaron Jones. Now, the problem is Jahmyr Gibbs might be 195 pounds. He might be 200 pounds. He's listed as 200 pounds on Alabama's website. That's a potential issue. But he should have an explosive season for Alabama, given that they lost John Mechie. They lost they lost Jamison Williams.
Right.
And all of their wide receiver positions, they're either transfers or first-time starters. Well, Jahmyr Gibbs has already been a very good player. And I think with what they've lost on offense, Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be the focus because of everything that he can do out of the backfield in the receiving game. And so, again, I think that he is going to, or he's attempting to elevate himself into the first round. So yeah, that's a whole 5 minutes or whatever on Jahmyr Gibbs. You also asked about sleepers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sleepers. So I mean, I don't know how deep we want to go with sleepers. Chris Tyree was actually one of my sleepers at the running back position.
Love that.
At another name to keep track of is Dwayne McBride out of UAB, a 215-ish pound thumper between the tackles, bursty guy. Last year, I think people know that Georgia had one of the best defenses that we've ever seen. This G5 running back, Dwayne McBride, had the second most rushing yards against Georgia. Wow. That's very, very impressive. I just got an alert that he's injured. He's not playing this week. But he's a player. He's not playing this week, but he's a player that a lot of people are high on. So I would keep track of him.
Sure. Okay.
At the quarterback position. At the quarterback position,
love the.
I like Cameron Ward. Cameron Ward at Washington State. He's a transfer, an CS transfer, Incarnate Ward to Washington State. They bring over his head coach, who's going to be Washington State's offensive coordinator, who learned under Mike Leach, Cliff Kingsbury when Patrick Mahomes was at Texas Tech. And so this is a guy who has like some sidearm ability. He's kind of a fun playground type, run around the backfield and find people open. There's questions about whether or not he has any deep accuracy. But when we talk about sleepers, we know that Bryce Young and CJ Stroud are probably the number one and two quarterbacks in this class. The question is really who's number three. There are a lot of guys that can get that spot. Anthony Richardson out of Florida. Tyler Van Dyke out of Miami. I don't think it's going to be Will Levis.
You don't think so?
I don't think it's going to be Will Levis. I think that he's doesn't have any. He has accuracy issues.
Okay.
But another candidate for that third spot could be Cameron Ward. So I would watch out for him. And then at the wide receiver position, this sucks because my primary sleeper for this 2023 class had been Isaiah Nayor, a transfer from Wyoming to Texas. Big, lanky, huge catch radius type wide receiver. He went down with an ACL injury. He's not playing this year. So I'm going to go back to Alabama. Go back to Alabama, and I'm going to go with Jermaine Burton, who is going to be their ex-wide receiver, the same position that Jamison Williams played last year. And it's funny how they have similar trajectories because Jamison Williams, after the spring game last year for Alabama, Nick Saban looked around and said, I don't have any speed. He went and got Jameson Williams, who was the 4th wide receiver at Ohio State, and he had the season that he had. Well, Jermaine Burton ran a 4.47. He was the fastest man at the opening coming out in his class. Extremely athletic, and that's paired with great broad jumps and vertical jumps. So we know that this guy's athleticism should be real. Was that and he played well as a freshman, started as a freshman, but Georgia's offense isn't very explosive.
Interesting.
At Alabama, he's going to be the primary target, and he's trying to do the same thing that Jameson Williams did last year. So he's not necessarily a sleeper in the campus to Canton community, but for people who are not necessarily paying attention to college, I would watch for, I believe he's number 7. He was number 7 at Georgia. I think he's still number 7 at Alabama. I would watch out for Jermaine Burton.
Interesting. See, I'm learning things already. Here I am thinking, I'm like, okay, I've heard the name Ja'Cory Brooks, so I'm thinking maybe he's someone that could emerge from that wide receiver room. But you're telling me that Jermaine Burton is the guy to watch.
Yeah, Ja'Cory Brooks isn't even listed as a starter for Alabama. It's interesting because he came in for John Mechie last year. You would think that he would start, but the depth chart was released earlier this week, and they've got Kobe Prentice and Trayshawn Holden starting. Ja'Cory Brooks is listed as backup. Now, we'll see how that shakes out. But and Ja'Cory Brooks is also a 2024 class, not a 2023. So I was kind of thinking, like, who are some people who are going to be in the NFL next year?
Right. Absolutely. Well, first of all, that's awesome information. I'm glad because here I am. Yeah, just goes to show how much I know. I'm wondering though if those depth charts are kind of like the preseason depth charts that you get with the NFL teams, where Breece Hall is the 4th running back or something like that. It's, I'll buy that when I see it. Let's transition real quick though to the NFL side. Some guys that had some success in college, but have yet to find that level of success in the professional ranks. I'm talking about Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson that you just talked about, Justin Fields. So who do you think out of those 3, given their current scenarios, has the best chance to succeed, and maybe who has the worst chance to a slim road to having success at the pro level?
Who has the best chance to succeed? It's not Zach Wilson. Unfortunately, despite all of his tools, I think in the preseason, and as short as his preseason was, he was making the same mistakes. And it's frustrating because I was very early on Zach Wilson. But as Matt Waldman and as JT O'Sullivan had explained, he had good results his last year at BYU in terrible process. And now his terrible process is catching up with him. I mean, you shouldn't be throwing an interception on a 4-yard hitch, a 3-step 4-yard hit. You just shouldn't. No. In that game against the Eagles where he got injured, I mean, he had like 3 passes. 2 of them were inaccurate. 1 was an interception. And the interception was like you shouldn't be throwing an interception. So he is making the same mistakes. It's not going to be Zach Wilson. And so then we have to choose between Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields. People have to understand that the 2020 college football season may not have happened without Justin Fields. Just think about that leadership that it took to make that season happen. He started this Just Let Us Play campaign and kind of galvanized athletes around the country during the pandemic.
I forgot about that.
He also transferred from Georgia to Ohio State and became a leader on the team. I mean, you can tell when you watch like the social media, their social media pages, that people gravitated towards him.
Right.
But the Bears do not like Justin Fields.
Oh, don't say that. Don't say that.
The Bears do not like Justin Fields. His one issue was holding on to the ball too long. Well, the Bears had a offensive line ranked 18th in pass blocking according to PFF. What did they do to improve their offensive line? What did they do to improve? What did they do to improve Justin Fields' release time? Did they get him a slot wide receiver who can get open in the intermediate area deep? No. Did they get him, a George Pickens who he can just throw the ball to even if he's covered? Yeah. No. Did they get him somebody like James Cook, an outlet out of the backfield? No. So the Bears don't like Justin Fields. They got a new coaching staff there. It doesn't feel – listen, I'm just comparing Justin Fields to like what the Bills did with Josh Allen. Think about what they did with Josh Allen after year one. Like, all right, Josh Allen, he needs to see it open. So what they do, they went and got one of the best separators that we have in the NFL in Stephon Diggs. They got the slot wide receiver in Cole Beasley. They got a veteran in Emmanuel Sanders to build around him. Think about what the Carolina Panthers did when they recognized the flaws in Cam Newton's game. This guy needs big catch radius guys. So what did they do? They went and got trees. Calvin Benjamin, Devin Funchess.
Yeah, had Greg Olsen.
Where's the Bears' plan? Where is the Bears' plan like that to build around Justin Fields to compensate for his losses? Somebody can explain it to me because I just don't see it.
Yeah, as a Bears fan, I am a big fan of what they're doing because it had been typical of the Bears for a long time, decades, there's a problem, let's go throw money at it. Let's go fix it with a big name that the fan base will love. Let's go get a Jay Cutler. Let's go get Brandon Marshall. Let's go bring someone in. Let's put some Band-Aids over the rocks of our foundation. Let's never address the offensive line. I like what they're doing in terms of their contracts. They've gotten rid of the big contracts. You don't need to hold on to a Khalil Mack. He's not going to help this team get anywhere productive. So moving him, taking a hit, you take a second-round pick for him, sure. Moving some other guys. I like the attempts that they're trying to hit on some high upside guys that are being released. Sure, we haven't seen anything successful from Alex Leatherwood. But you know what? He's a first-round tackle. Should he have been drafted in the first round? Probably not. But, he's a guy that I think the Bears can hopefully see what he has. If he has something he's productive, sure. I mean, we've probably got the worst offensive line in the league. So why not take some shots? And hopefully, we bring in some weapons.
Even, you mentioned Leatherwood, who was recently released and they claim on waivers.
Right.
Alex Leatherwood was not in their plans for the 2022 season. No. And that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't see how they're saying we're going to make Justin Fields the best quarterback in the league. We're going to compensate for his weaknesses. I just don't see their plan to do that. Sorry, listen, I'm a Lions fan. I've had futility. You went to a Super Bowl during my life. We won one playoff game in 1992. So
that's funny because that was actually going to be one of the questions I wanted to ask you is who your team is. So you're a Lions fan.
I'm a Lions fan.
I've been accused of being a closet Lions fan here on the show many a times because, look, I am in love with what Dan Campbell is doing with that franchise. I love what you guys are building over there. I feel like one of the more underrated moves was trading for Jared Goff when you had to give up Stafford. I feel like Goff's underrated enough to get you to that next bump, or at least be like a Jimmy G type when you put the weapons around him. So I like what you guys are doing there.
That's an interesting take. I like what I can't remember our GM's name. I can see his face. I like what he's doing. I am not a fan of the meathead head coach. I'm not.
Okay.
And Dan Campbell, a former Lion who was on the 2008 0-16 team.
What history there?
Yeah. A tight end who's never been a head coach at any level. Yes. Well, actually, I'm sorry. He was the interim head coach for the Miami Dolphins. We'll see, man. We'll see. I don't know that has that model worked. I think that we can arguably it has worked with Mike Vrabel in Tennessee.
Right.
Can we become that type of team? You talk about Jared Goff getting us over the hump. I mean, do you know how big that hump is? Do you know how big that hump is for Lions fans?
That's a large hump.
That's a large hump. That is a large hump.
Yeah.
So I think that what they're doing, they didn't draft a quarterback. They could have taken Sam Howell at any time during the draft. They could have taken Matt Corral at any time during the draft.
Right.
So I have to believe they're looking at 2023, and they have another 2023 for now. That's probably going to be the 32nd pick in the draft because it's the Rams draft pick.
Of course.
But I do like, what they're doing if they get, an elite talent at the quarterback position and an elite offensive coordinator. I mean, I think that they
Okay.
need, somebody from the Shanahan system or
Right.
Eric Bieniemy. I wanted Eric Bieniemy to be the
That man
Lions head
needs
coach.
that man needs
Yeah.
a head coaching job. It is
So
a
once they
travesty.
get those two pieces in place, the quarterback and an established offensive coordinator, because their offensive line is going to be one of the best in the league. Their running game is going to be good. Their skill position players between Hawkinson and DJ Chark and Jameson Williams, once he's healthy, this is a great video game team.
Right. And you didn't even mention Amon-Ra. Like Amon-Ra's still there.
I didn't even mention Amon-Ra. I didn't mention Amon-Ra.
Like that's the running backs are silly. Yeah, it's got some potential to be very fun, and I think you guys might be catching the NFC North.
People like cheering for us because they're like, "Oh, that's cute. Look, they're trying so hard.
Come on, these guys want to win so bad.
They want to win so bad." But I don't know that we're there yet because I don't know that Jared Goff elevates your team, and I don't know that we have the pieces on defense. I mean, the Matt Patricia era was terrible because they had defensive tackles who weren't big enough to stop the run and defensive ends who were not, athletic enough to get around the edge. They had all of these tweener players, and we're still recovering from that. That's why Aiden Hutchinson, an edge rusher right there, really big for us at the top of the draft. We got to build through him. We still need help. We still need help stopping the run. We still need the linebackers. We just released Jared Davis, who was one of our first round picks under
that was wild.
So, I mean, there's still like a lot of room to grow here. I'm sorry. Everybody loves the lovable losers, but we aren't.
That's the Hard Knocks effect, You see that you see that grit, you see the kneecaps, you see the weird comparisons to people he'll still beat. Like it's just you want to root for him. So I agree with you. But getting back to what we were talking about, that got us off on this tangent. That got us talking to the Lions. I love it. I'm here for it. So we talked about Zach Wilson, Justin Fields. Does that mean you think Trevor Lawrence is most likely to succeed then?
Yeah. I mean, out of those three,
out
of those three, I want it to be Justin Fields. I do. I really want it to be Justin Fields. I want it to be Zach Wilson too, but I'm just kind of over Zach Wilson. But it's got to be Trevor Lawrence, who's still, if he is not shell shocked from last year,
I hope not.
Under Urban Meyer, he might be able to pull it together. He might be able to pull it together.
Right. Yeah, I'm hoping. I'm keeping an eye on him for sure. I think they haven't really given him superstar talent yet. ETN coming back maybe gives him the hand up. But there's also another running back coming into his first season that the fantasy community is having to decide between this year, and that's Breece Hall, the running back for the Jets, and then of course Travis Etienne, like we were just talking about. Who do you have probably having a more productive season fantasy-wise between those two?
That's a difficult question to ask because I think of it in the context of who would I rather roster, and I've never been a fan of Travis Etienne. I think that he's was a good player at Clemson, but I don't know that he has I'm actually surprised he was a first-round pick. I don't think that he's a very good pass catcher. I don't think that he has elite speed or vision. I don't know what he offers in offense. Now I could be wrong. Breece Hall was good in wide zone at Iowa State. He did test as a very good athlete, and both of them have the fact that they were productive, since their freshman years. But between those two, I'm going to pick Breece Hall, but I'm also going to pick Breece Hall because Mike LaFleur, who's in with the Jets, comes from that Shanahan coaching tree, which we've seen produce a ton of successful running backs. I mean, not just Kyle Shanahan. Go back to Mike Shanahan. We're talking about Clinton Portis and Orlandis Gary and Mike Anderson, like all of these guys that they took from being undrafted free agents to rushing for 1,000 yards.
Terrell Davis,
Terrell, I didn't even say Terrell Davis.
If you want to give him credit for that.
Yes. So, Breece Hall is operating in that system that has produced those effective guys. So, it's not really close to. I don't have Travis Etienne anywhere. I don't have
wow.
Travis
I've got
Etienne
him
anywhere.
everywhere. I have
Yeah,
him
I'm not a fan
everywhere.
of Travis Etienne. I think you drafted,
Okay.
some version of Trent Richardson. I could be wrong. I like players doing
Ooh.
well, so maybe not.
Oh,
I think,
wow.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All
I could be
right.
wrong.
That's a spicy take, Felix, calling him Trent Richardson. You know what? Richardson had one great rookie season. He had a pretty good rookie season. And then we never heard from him again. That guy had no field vision whatsoever. So, man, that's gonna hurt all of my fantasy teams if that comes to fruition. So, respectfully, I hope you're dead wrong.
I mean, he's going to bounce it outside, try to bounce it outside every play. I just don't know that he has the vision to be an interior runner in the NFL.
Oh, I hope he does. I hope he does turn it around then. But you just mentioned him in a wide zone scheme. You talked about the Shanahan system. Do you notice any similarities between the systems run in college and maybe things that translate well into the NFL from working with Campus Canton?
In the running game, yes. Not necessarily in the passing game. So when you look at what Matt Campbell does at Iowa State, if you look at what Jeff Grimes, the offensive coordinator at Baylor, who was at BYU, I mean, his offense has been described as like a Shanahan air raid system. So I mean, everybody kind of runs like some version of gap, but some emphasize. Right. I think what's really important is what they do off of the run. So with like Jeff Grimes at BYU, they will run wide zone and then run wide zone play action boot and get your safeties to come up, and they're running these long developing routes behind that play action because your safeties are occupied. So I do think there are similarities in the running game. However, in the passing game, the hashes are so different in college that the space is different, and so that's a big difference. Yeah,
I never considered that. Because the hashes are what are they? Are they closer together?
They're closer together in the NFL.
In the NFL,
they're in college they're wider, so there's more. You have more space on that wide side of the field. There's more space on the college side. So
I got you. Okay, I'm just trying to paint a picture in my head from when I'm, because everyone likes to consider themselves. Oh, I know. Which
so if you just think about when they're kicking a field goal in college, or excuse me, in the NFL. I mean, that ball is like right there in the uprights. In college, when they're kicking the field, that angle might be like way, it's way different. Sense. So, yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, it's just interesting, especially listening to the differences in the game. There's so many questions I have. I don't think we're gonna have enough time to cover them all. But moving on to some other topics here, while I've got you, we talked about Notre Dame and Ohio State. One team that we haven't talked about much. You mentioned Nayor and his injury, but Texas has. Look, I've been waiting for us to be back. Ever since Sam Ehlinger said we were back. So still on hold. I have, again, this irrational feeling of hope as a Texas resident now and living, in Austin. Can you give me some hope here on Quinn Ewers? Hopefully I'm even pronouncing the name right. I've heard it pronounced 3 different ways so far. And because I'm getting really weird as a Notre Dame fan. I'm getting really, really weird, like Jimmy Clausen vibes from Quinn Ewers.
Yeah, Jimmy Clausen was not the prospect that Quinn Ewers was. So, I mean, for those who don't know, Quinn Ewers is the highest rated quarterback ever in the 24/7's rankings history. So there's only one other player that he compares to that's Vince Young. Quinn Ewers has It's perfect. The rating scale is on a 1 scale, so like 0.99 is very, very high. Well, Quinn Ewers is rated a 1.
Wow.
A 1. Higher than Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence, Matthew Stafford, Jameis Winston, Mark Sanchez. I mean, you go down the line of some of these highly rated quarterbacks. Regardless of what I think about Quinn Ewers specifically, I think Steve Sarkisian is a very, very good play caller. I think Steve Sarkisian, whoever his quarterback would be, that they're going to have success. If you look at the combined stats of Hudson Card and Casey Thompson last year, the starting quarterbacks for Texas, I mean, that was a very, very good player if you combine them. The problem with Texas is I think your offensive line is terrible. It's been terrible for 2 years. It was terrible in the spring game last year, and I don't think that it's necessarily improved this year. And who do they have coming in week 2? Oh, Alabama, who just might have the best defensive player that we've seen, since Vaughn Miller-ish and Will Anderson. And they've got another edge rusher who they might – they should just sit Quinn Ewers in that game because those edges are going. They're coming. They're going to have to get the ball out of his hand quickly. But is Texas back? Well, I mean, they've got 2 elite recruits at quarterback, and one in Quinn Ewers now. Arch Manning will be there next year, and when you can recruit the quarterback position, you got to win through offense in college football now. When you can recruit the quarterback position. All the other dominoes fall as far as offensive line, wide receivers, speed, running backs, because they want to play at a place where they're going to be elevated and they can be potential draft picks.
Good point.
It's hard to get that type of talent at Michigan. Sorry, it just is. It's not going to be that hard to get that type of talent at Texas, but Sarkisian is only in his second year there. So give him some time to kind of fortify everything around that offense and let them shore up the defense, and they're going to have to because they're moving to the SEC here soon. So is Texas back? Almost. They're almost back.
Hopefully we get back in time for getting to the SEC. A lot of Oklahoma and Texas moving to the SEC. That's going to be a lot of fun. I don't really know what it's going to do for the Big 12 or even talking about now realigning these.
I think the Big 12 is going away.
Or it's going to be same thing with is it the Pac-12? Is it the Pac-12, Pac-10, whatever it was? It's not anymore because you've got USC and UCLA joining the Big 10 in a couple of years. So this whole realignment thing, I don't know how much of it is to do with the NIL deals and the TV contracts, obviously, that the Big 10 just signed. So my question to you is, where do you think this is all going? Because we're seeing these huge seismic shifts, where players like Caleb Williams just follow Lincoln Riley over to USC. Like, that was a shocker. And then they load up on more talent with Jordan Addison. So where do you see this becoming kind of similar to an NFL structure where it's maybe we see a salary cap or maybe we see a restriction?
No. Legally, they can't have a salary cap because kind of the what's the word I'm looking for? The antitrust protections that they have in place are related to this being like amateurism. Right. I'm not articulating this correctly, but if they had like a salary cap, then they would have to allow the players to unionize, which would they're
not employees, right?
Yeah, right. Mess up college football. So it's very clear where we're headed. Is there's going to be 2 big conferences in the Big 10 and the SEC, but is there going to be another big conference? I mean, we got to think about what's going to happen with Notre Dame. Wherever they move is going to be get big. Notre Dame might not move anyway, because if you think about the reason why the reason why these schools are making these moves is so they can command a higher dollar figure from the television or streaming services. We're talking about, I think for the SEC, it's like $75 million a year per institution under their, or somewhere around there. In the Big 10, somewhere similar. You look at like a conference, like I was looking at this information earlier, like for the AAC, the conference with Cincinnati and Houston. We're talking about 14 million. So when these schools make the jump from one of those conferences to the Big 10 or from like a G5 conference to a Power 5 conference, it means a lot. It means a lot for the university. You might be going from making, again, $14 million a year in television revenue to maybe $45 or $50 million a year.
That's incredible.
But then for the Big 10 and the SEC, though, we haven't even seen what those numbers are going to be in the maybe
Oh,
90, $100 million range. So
for
that is
sure.
why they are moving, because we can go tell Apple TV we want $100 million a
Yeah.
year for each
Right.
institution. We're talking about
Yeah.
billions of dollars.
And they'll
We can
get
go
it.
tell, Amazon, NBC. You saw ESPN.
Yeah.
ESPN got out of the race because they don't have the money to pay for it.
And
They
that's
don't have the money to
incredible.
pay for it
Something like
because
ESPN.
so it's funny because we're going to be watching college football probably on Apple TV, on Amazon, because, or Netflix or something, because those are the platforms
Right.
the most money, and they're going to pay for it because live television is like the last thing that you can sell to advertisers, because you know where somebody's going to be. And they're
Right.
not going to fast forward when you're watching live. I mean, live television is so valuable. So,
Right.
these schools are creating leverage for themselves by kind of joining forces. They know what they have. They know what they're worth.
That's some great insight because, one, I'm a huge fan of these tech companies kind of getting into the football space. We've gotten really, I don't know what the complacent with the broadcast, I guess. When are we going to get like an all 22 view of a freaking game, man? Like they did a shot like that a few years ago out of necessity when, there was fog and they couldn't
Lightning
get the
straight, yeah.
exactly. They couldn't the weather. Oh man, I guess we're going to have to use the really cool camera views for when the weather's bad, and then we'll just go back to the old stuff because it's what we use most of the time. So that's what
I would like that too. I would like the all 22 view, and I would also like the view behind the quarterback, because I want to see what
Yes.
the quarterback is seeing as far as the safeties and the coverage. What information the quarterback is processing.
Yes.
It takes a long time for the audience and the market to adjust to that kind of thing. So we'll probably not see it. We've been using this one view for
Right.
however many years, but when they do like mega casts and stuff,
Yeah.
they
The
give you
Manning
those
cast and everything.
they give you those alternate views, but
Yeah.
we're probably a long way from that being the norm.
I want that to be the norm, though, Felix. I want it. I just want to be, I don't know, whether it's just different and I get excited about it, or, I mean, the view you're talking about, that's exactly the view I was talking about, was the right behind the quarterback. You see the play develop, and then you can see the decision making, in time, in real time. Man, that'd be fun though. Like you said, we're probably a little bit ways out of there, in terms of in the future. Real quick though, before I let you go and don't take all of your evening, can you tell me just a couple things for this upcoming college season? What are you most excited to see develop? What are some storylines that maybe you're paying more attention to as a college fan?
Well, I mean, there are a lot of storylines that I'm paying attention to. Some deeper ones, some more mainstream. The mainstream ones are what you alluded to earlier: Lincoln Riley taking his brand and his offensive philosophy, all of that from Norman to LA to Los Angeles, and can he succeed? There are people who are listening to this who don't remember USC being a powerhouse with Matt Leinart and Lindell White and Reggie Bush, returning punts and people not being able to catch them. They don't remember playing the NCAA video game and USC being, and Mike Williams back in the day.
Yes.
So that's one I'm looking for. The other is Alabama is considered to be this blue blood, this powerhouse, and it is, but they've got a lot of fresh faces at the skill positions. They're coming off a Heisman Trophy winning player in Bryce Young. He's got a lot of new faces there that he's going to go throw to. Are they going to be as explosive as they've been in years past? If they had Steve Sarkisian still there calling plays, I would say, yeah, there's a good chance. But we're going to see what Bill O'Brien, the former head coach of the Texans, what he can do with new players who are not established. And I'm skeptical. And then the other one is I think that Ohio State is on a rampage, given what they return and what they did, how they finished the season last year, losing to Michigan in Ann Arbor. They destroyed an overmatched Utah team that was playing a running back at wide receiver. They were playing a running back at corner who was guarding one of the best wide receivers in the country. So those are kind of the three main storylines that I'm looking forward to watching this and following this season.
Man, there's a lot to keep track of, especially with all the, like you said, big names changing spaces and Alabama being themselves. I'll be interested in keeping an eye on it, man. And we'll definitely have to stay in touch as the season goes on. There's
Absolutely.
so much information that I want to share with our audience in regards to college and the Campus Canton experience. Thank you so much, by the way, for taking the time here and talking football with me, man. It's been
No
great talking to
problem.
you.
No problem, Dustin. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on.
Hey, no problem. Make sure, everyone, that you're following Felix Sharpe on Twitter at Sharpe Review. You can catch him over on campustocanton.com. That's campus, the number 2 in Canton, .com. And then make sure you catch him on the Better Network most
Yes.
Saturdays at 8 a.m. And as always, everyone, thank you for listening. And losing sucks. Don't do it.